He's obviously doing a lot of things in that message. He's warning us. We're all looking at war, rumors of war and war. I think those will be with us for some time. But we're also looking for our own personal foundation of charity, creativity, and optimism. That's what you and I have to focus on. We have never been more called upon. I'm supposed to be looking over here. Am I? Sorry, everyone. I like looking at you. We've never been more called upon to hold a fixed disposition of hope for ourselves in the world. When the Lord gave these, I felt the obligation to try to get them correctly down. And I also felt their great seriousness. And I also felt like we've been given so much. He has a right to ask us to respond as precisely as he is asking. He talks about an unhealthy curiosity about the details of the experiences of others as viewed through a lens which often ignores suffering. So everybody's kind of looking at what the celebrity culture is getting up to, even in the church. And it prompts us to ignore our jobs, our roles, our calls for the day, to be creative, charitable, and optimistic with regard to our wives and husbands and kids, and the little work we do, whatever job is ours. And so whatever piece of your work is in this day, we have to treat it like that. I'm wondering about how we should respond to the war, the latest rumor of war, and, actual fact probably, well, whatever, the war, and the aggression. And I was reflecting deeply upon, I remember somebody once saying the word schism in the beginning of the attacks on Pope Francis. And I remember saying, who said the word? Who used the word? Because that is the culprit. And then the word became more and more used. It was dropped like a bomb into our Catholic culture. And then people began to bat it around like badminton, bat around thing. What's the name of it? Shuttlecock? Okay. That didn't help us any. We are not a schismatic people. We are an Easter people. We are followers. We don't start our own churches, and we don't disrespect the man who leads our church. If you look at the writings and how God is steering us, you can see that we are prompted, always kind of being nudged like a puppy nudges, like a dog nudges a puppy, toward reform of our hearts and our minds and our thinking and how we view the church and how we view ourselves. And Pope Francis is doing that nudging, that little nose nudging towards, let's get into that reform stream. We don't, is he doing it perfectly? Gee, it would be the first time any pope ever did, if he is. Are you doing your job perfectly? I'm sure not. You can testify to that, my many mistakes and things. But anyway, so how am I supposed to view this idea? Who's talking about war? Who's talking about war? And who's talking about peace? It's tough going because of our media hyping everything up. Well, now they have something to really report on. Let's see how they do. Now we have real problems, so to speak. And all of that's occurring. All of that's occurring all around us. And then there's a bigger call, a light from heaven down to each one of us from the star that we follow. And that's asking something of me. And it's very personal, and it's very specific. And only I am certain about what it is, and only I can do it each day. And that, my friends, is the same for each one of us. And I can't sit, glued to what's happening anywhere else but in my soul and with the people around me each day. I don't want to say I don't have time for the war, because I am praying for peace. I'm praying for peace for all of us, and certainly the Ukrainians and the Russian people don't need this. So we're praying for peace earnestly and moving then back into our work of the day. All right. I want to give you a kind of like a timeline or something about where we are as an apostolate. So this is what's in my mind. So we are, a child is growing up, and do children need a lot of religion? No. You don't need to douse a child with religion. But they need formation. They need little bits of beautiful religion and spirituality, and they can really do well and dance freely and come to know God's love with a little bit. As they grow, then we form them with more catechism and more knowledge and understanding about our sacramental life until they are confirmed. And then at that time, we have an expectation that they have been given a lot of what they need in catechesis, whether we agree that it's being done now or not. We know that that's the plan. And then they embark into another time. Now, you and I mostly are like those children. We were given a little, then imperfectly we were given more, and we were confirmed, and we had our Catholic faith. And then what happened? Okay, God sent the volumes. And wonder about those volumes now. Oh, I took some notes on this. Invariably, then I can't find them. What God did with the volumes is He drew us in to His thinking. This is how heaven thinks. This is how heaven thinks about you. This is how heaven speaks. This is how heaven wants you to view others. Wants you to view your life. The volumes were an extraordinary tuition for us, weren't they? And then that was good. And then we had booklets. And the booklets were like, okay, now, here, use these to help people with specific problems. This is how heaven views someone who suffered from abuse. This is what heaven would say to someone who doesn't have enough money. This is how heaven feels about our experiences of depression and stress and addiction. So we were given that so that we could have specific help for specific challenges that we faced. Those are beautiful, and those of us who have read them a number of times to learn them, like as in almost like a course on how to help people, know that when we confront someone who's dealing with one of those issues, we produce it, don't we? It comes out, and we're offering something then that's really helpful to people. All right, then we went to the big books, and the big books were like depth in the spiritual development for all of us. They were like giving us really more of an immersion into the divine life. Like then Christ said, okay, now let's look at life after death. Let's show you what the state of purgatorial suffering actually is. And let's give you an idea of the spiritual work that's being done there. And then an example of heaven. And it really showed us that it's about truth and about accuracy and about layers being stripped away that are hard for us to strip away. Okay, so that was the big books. Then we went into contemplative prayer teaching. This is where my thinking is. Now, the contemplative prayer structure and that tuition and those practices are, in a sense, a response to the fact that many Catholics weren't going anywhere deep with their faith. We're called to be deeply aware of and united to the divine life, and yet people were making super rookie mistakes. Surface Catholicism is not attractive, and it certainly hasn't drawn large numbers to our faith. On the contrary, we've seen enormous contractions. Okay, so this contemplative prayer is what I think of as complete prayer. So in my head, often I call that structure the complete prayer. Because it takes you, it insists that you go into all these areas of your life, and with Christ, you're going to be in this area, and you're pulling, you don't have to pull Christ. Christ is drawing you to Him in every area of potential self delusion. We can think we're serving really well in a marriage, but actually, without looking closely, we can see that we're actually hurting somebody and, have an attitude of, you've got nothing on me. And to be on the receiving end of that, not good. To be on the offering end of that, not good. You see, this contemplative prayer, complete prayer structure helps you to strip away, like the layers of the onion, places where you're being fooled about yourself, where you haven't gone deep enough. Are you with me? Okay, so that's exciting for us, right? Because it's a development. And we are getting, in the complete prayer, we're getting more and more understanding and light from God about areas where we are under an illusion that that we have done the work, or that we have done enough of the work. And then there's always deeper levels of going, okay, now what is that about? So then you do this. And then now, as I said before, I'm on another phase, and that is more into like mysticism. And I always knew Christ wanted us to be thoughtful men and women in the world. So we are thoughtful men and women of God. But there's a purpose. It has to give way to something. This is our great hope and our desire and our heart's craving. When we receive the sacramental graces, you receive a sacrament, it's like a little bubble of heavenly grace. Pop, and somehow you're changed, you're altered, you're benefited, you're edified, you're just comforted, consoled, calm. You feel like a good boy or a good girl, and you are. You are. That's the truth. Doesn't mean you're finished, but it does mean that you are good, created to do good things, and you want to overcome yourself and make less mistakes as you go. I believe when we pray in a mysticism, when we pop into that area, that's where all that grace is. There's little bubbles of it in the sacraments, but really, when you see people praying like in a mystical sense, they're not talking about religion. In the same way that a small child doesn't talk a lot about religion, but talks about God's love in a very educated way, despite being so small. Why? There's not layers of the onion on the child. Love is love, and the child gets love. When you're up in this space of freedom, you get love. And there's not all these layers of the onion, because you have submitted to the hard work of the complete prayer, and there's less and less to slow you down. You're not weighted. You're not weighted. You become freer and lighter. And then what happens over time, you go into contemplative prayer, Christ is able to help you, okay? And then you go into contemplative prayer, Christ is able to help you. You go in. There's no substitute for discipline. You can't just have it without effort. Ultimately, every athlete knows this. If you practice for 30 minutes one motion that is your job in a sports team, right before the game, you get out there, what happens? It works. You perform. This is the same way. We submit the global events to God for mercy. And we do our hard work so that when Christ has a need for us, there's no distance between us and Christ. He doesn't have to get past us. He just tells us. It just comes over us. And you know what you have to do, and you do it. You don't think much about it anymore. That's the beautiful, what's the words? I used in one of the books, that's the poetry of the game. Like, like in basketball where I said some people are so worried about foot faults they never actually play. You do this practice, you'll find that you're not worried about foot faults. You're understanding how Christ wants you to be in relationships. You're discerning what is God and what's your own inspirations in prayer. You're able to separate out the simplicity of a divine grace from a humanly desired or manufactured spiritual experience. Now, okay, are you with me? I know this is a lot. I want you to see where I'm going, where we are going together. The other thing I would say to you, I think that there was something in our Catholic faith that occurred where everyone got complacent, and there was a real low ceiling on the church in the sense of everyone's practicing, but like, what for? Why? Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this so we can live the divine life in advance of heaven. That's what God wants for us. That's what the sacraments are. The fact that you're not talking about religion all the time when you're praying at a mature level doesn't mean you're not practicing it. The sacraments are what keep your body hydrated. If you're not drinking water, you are dehydrated. And if you stop practicing the sacraments, you will become weaker. We need the sacramental graces. Now, in times where we can't access them, no problem. God sends them in this bigger way. But if you're not in a position to recognize how heaven thinks and communicates and talks and how the Spirit rests so sweetly and gently, well, you can't really take it in when it's God. Does this make sense? Is this motivating you to focus on your prayer life and not be afraid? Yeah, because let's get this done. And then what he does with us, who cares? I don't worry about that. You want to mute everyone? Yeah. My friends, here's another thing. When I travel away and I meet a lot of you, it's so beautiful to see apostles of the returning King. We're carrying ourselves the same way. There's a real kind of calm about us and a real resonant gaze, an observer's quiet, earnest desire for the right thing that we all share, that I see in all of you. That humility of not being the expert in the room, willing to allow God to be the expert in any room we're standing. What I say about this? Okay, so the apostle of the returning King, apostles of the returning King, we are somebody, we are something in the Catholic Church. And we have to act like who we are. We have to grab hold of our identity now and steer with it. It's for this time. And it's not a spectator sport. It's costing a lot of us. It's costing you. And that's no problem for any of us. We're willing to give till it hurts. And we believe in what we're doing because we believe in what Christ has done for us. So what I'm saying is, it's not a time for a casual treatment of our apostolate. In some ways, for many of us, this is our life's work to greater or lesser extents, divine by God, decided by God. I have to say that I was both overjoyed in meeting many of you, and then to see what was out there in terms of other people, Catholics, but their minds are blind. Their minds are closed. They've been hijacked. So it doesn't matter if you're fighting against someone with every fiber of your being and you're Catholic or Muslim or Buddhists wouldn't do that. They'd be perplexed by that. But it doesn't matter what ethnicity you are, what religion you are, what political party you're from. It's all the same thing. It's a closed mind that's focused on an opponent. That's not holy. You're not getting, you can't tell me you're on a divine journey with God if all you can think or talk about is being against some external evil that you've determined is evil, and that you've been conscripted into this identity and then pitted and fired against unity anywhere you are. Don't do it. It's not for you. We have a holier, higher walk. We have to walk like a high path of lowliness. That's what we're doing. It's a high path of lowliness. And you have to be quite small to advance up towards mysticism. And Catholic mysticism is our tradition. It's for us. And there's this idea that we can't be trusted with it. And that's, I think, what drives people into mega churches, because at some level they are being welcomed to identify God in their thoughts and their lives. And they're also being invited to do this freely. Now, there's a heck of a lack of discernment in a lot of it. And again, you have the ideologists within those churches. It just doesn't feel very, well, I know that they're doing good work, and I thank God for them. Our path is our path. It includes the sacramental life. It includes promoting unity in the Catholic Church. It includes compassionate listening when someone is hurting, but not when someone is ranting. Has anyone met the ranters? Oh my gosh, holy St. Patrick. I'm like, I could start singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat. The person wouldn't notice. It wouldn't impact them at all. Their minds are just closed. And what is the need to, what's the need for that? You know, it's got a kind of its own melody, which is at least consistent, but it hurts to the heart and the soul. You want to say something nutty and just interrupt it, but it won't. It doesn't help. And my friends, we're on different beliefs. All of us here. There could be half of us who are one way and half of us who believe the other. There could be half of us who believe this is the way, or half of us, like, it doesn't matter that we don't agree. There's no reason to march into battle against your friends. The biggest thing about us is that we follow Christ. And there's a way to do this. And He has given it to us. We're going to be answerable to it. We're going to be answerable to it. I gave you the way. You heard what I said. You read what I said. You saw my words on a paper. And then you ran off to find something else that was more exciting. I just think I understand that instinct in people to know what's going to happen and seek the sensational that makes them excited. But you know what makes me excited? Our identity. Who we are in the Catholic Church for this time and the time to come. I've seen you. I've listened to you. I love when I meet you, because we are resonating a certain way and it's working. So now we're going to go on. Everyone's doing all the work. I'm reading, like if I get discouraged, I sit down with volume 10, cover to cover, uninterrupted, take a deep breath, and I go on. So I'm not saying that we arrive at this one point of prayer and that's it. We never go back. We are continually immersing ourselves in the volumes, the writings, the readings, the Mass, confession, Holy Communion when we can get it, and if not, a spiritual communion. I believe it's going really well. So I'm working on this mystical piece. How much time do I have left, guys?
3 minutes after 2.
Oh, we're over time. Okay. All right. Oh, thank you. Should we stay out of groups that are primarily rigidly religious or try to be an example? That's a great question. Stay out of them. You're not helping them. They're taking you somewhere. You know, I remember someone saying, yeah, well, I go out at night to these places, but I'm always talking about God. I'm like, you're annoying those people. They're bringing you somewhere. You're not bringing them somewhere. What are you doing at midnight in a bar? You know, it's not for us. It's just not. There's religious groups of, they call themselves conservatives. They're going to save the church from the Pope. Guys, come on. You don't save the Catholic Church from the Pope. You don't do it. It's not what's done. There's got to be arrogance in it. There has to be. We have lost most of our members. You think it's because of Pope Francis? He wasn't here when it happened. Come on. It's like, I would stay out of those groups and I would stay out of the events. And I'm puzzled, to be quite honest, how anyone's being tricked or tempted into visiting either this pole of expression, which is disobedient on one side, and this pole of expression, which is disobedient on the other side. Both of these lines in the church have things in common. They're both, there's arrogance. They know better than the people who have been put in charge. And they don't lead to peace. They're not going to lead you to service. So if you're looking for excitement, I don't have that. I don't have that. What I have is a way that God has given to all of us that will make you become holier and know God better. You will be a better Catholic. But more importantly, you'll be a better you. You'll be happier, confident, calm. Everyone's upset. We're not upset. We're kind of like, well, I wonder what my role will be there. And will I have the courage to play it? Okay? I love you all very much, and I wanted to talk about this mysticism, and I will do it in the time to come. Let's say one more thing. There is this idea of the metaverse. Okay, the metaverse, and it's going to draw us in, and they're going to tell us what to think, what to see, and how to feel about everyone around us. And we're going to practice virtue in there, which isn't quite hard. It's just like a few clicks. It's not actually going to cost much. Okay, so everyone tells me about how evil this is. I agree, it's not looking good. However, what I'm saying is, the devil always sets himself up and mocks what's coming. So what might be God's plan? And I've asked you this. What do we think God is planning? Here's what it is. I really believe what God is willing for us in the future is a more intimate connection to the divine life. So that we are here and we are more intimately, exquisitely connected to Christ in the divine life. And that this metaverse where we're taking your mind is actually a mockery of what's coming, which is God is allowing us to have our minds with His more connected directly. When I realized that, I thought, this makes perfect sense to me. All right, I love you. God bless you. Julie has an announcement.
Hey guys, just two very quick announcements. The next time that we meet, which will be the 8th of March, will be in the first week of Lent. So we just have a couple of things that we're offering this Lent, and we'll be sending out email blasts this week to announce them, and you can sign up there. The first is that we're going to be offering contemplative prayer for the 40 days of Lent, the contemplative prayer course. We're going to be offering that again at $49 for the 40 days of Lent. So we'll be sending info on that. And we'll also be hosting a Whispers from the Cross Lenten Retreat Conference. That will be on Saturday, March 12th. So it's usually when we have the monthly gatherings. And for those of you who get the daily emails, you know that we've been going through Whispers of the Cross, or Whispers from the Cross, and we'll continue to be doing that through Lent. So we hope that you can join us for both of those journeys through contemplative prayer and Whispers from the Cross. And again, more details will be coming out in the next week or so on both of those things to come. Thanks so much, guys. Great to see you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. God bless.